Okay, fingers crossed technology works. I am in eScribe rolling. We've got YouTube going. I think we are ready to go live now.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. That was some nice work. That was a lot to kind of figure out in 20 minutes.
Yes, I'm sorry we didn't get to start early. I will do my best to run everything on the back side and just hope that you guys can help be my backup.
We got this, Amanda. Don't worry.
Sweet deal. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay, I'll read my officer script here and we'll get started. Thanks for joining our meeting held via Zoom webinar today. When I call for public comment, please use the raise/lower hand feature to let me know you wish to be recognized. Our host will allow you to talk and you'll need to unmute your mic. If you have joined us by phone today, you can raise and lower your hand by pressing *9 and mute and unmute by *6. If you are participating by phone, I will call on you by reading the last 4 digits of your phone number. If you're participating by computer, I'll call the name that was listed when you enter our webinar. And with that, my name is Brandon Prinzing. I am the chair of the Design Review Board, and I call this meeting on February 9th, 2022 to order. Let's see, admin, would you please call roll to determine if we have a quorum?
Briggs. Absent. Chestnut.
Present.
McMillan.
Present.
Prinzing.
Present.
Slobod.
Present.
Smith.
Present.
Thane. Absent. Top.
Present.
It looks like Donald just logged on.
Yeah, I would give everybody a little bit of a grace period. I think people are getting in late.
All right, I will mark Don Briggs as present. And I do see Levi Thane now, so I will mark him as present. So yes, we have full board present. We have a quorum.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda.
Brandon, could we get Ryan Sudbury and Troy Monroe promoted to panelists, please?
Ryan and what was the second one?
Troy.
Troy Monroe. Promote to panelist. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item number 3, approval of minutes. Hope everyone had a chance to look over the minutes from last time. Was there any corrections, comments, or debate on minutes from last board meeting in January? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I'd move to
Like
approve the minutes.
I'll
All right,
second that.
can I get a second?
More or less.
Thank you, Brian, for the primary and Ryan for the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
As opposed, nay. Motion carries. Approved. Minutes are approved from last board meeting. Let's see, agenda item number 4. Is there any public comment other than on the agenda items tonight? I'll pause for a moment to see if there's anyone raises their hand. There's a little bit of a delay sometimes. Seeing no hands raised, we'll move to agenda item number 5, staff announcements. I hear there's a board training tonight. Appreciate that. So take it away, staff.
Give me a moment, sorry. Screen.
And just as an announcement, I believe there should be a sign package coming through next month, as well as DER training, design excellence training.
Great. Thanks, you guys.
Okay. Can someone give me a tip about what to click so that I don't have the notes, the next slide piece? I forget the trick for that. Cassie, do you know?
I think it's under your display settings at the top left.
Ah, thank you.
I was gonna say, I have no idea.
But otherwise, I can share your presentation. I have that up as well.
No, I think you can see it, right? Can you see the
Yes.
presentation? Okay.
We can.
Is
yeah.
it big enough? I think we'll just go forward with this.
Okay.
I know
I
there's a
think so.
trick, but I forget the trick.
I think it's view options at the top, possibly. At the top of your screen.
I have show taskbar, display settings, or end slideshow.
Do you have above that? Do you have like a little green bar at the very top and then next to it a little thing that says view
I
options?
do. And I have maybe under more.
Okay.
Nope,
Okay.
not in that location. I apologize. Okay, so good evening. I'm Mary McCrae, and I am the Permits and Land Use Manager in the Development Services Division of the Community Planning, Development, and Innovation Department for the City of Missoula. So this presentation will provide the regulatory framework for review and action on projects that come before the Design Review Board. So the Title 20 city zoning ordinance adopted by City Council in compliance with state law provides regulations for development within the City of Missoula. Title 20 can be accessed from the city's website from the city's laws page. And when you click on the Title 20 link, you're connected to MuniCode and Title 20. So I have the link on this slide, and then this is what you'll get when you pull up MuniCode with Title 20. City Council established DRB in Title 20 and assigned review of specific projects to DRB. DRB actions are required to be consistent with all City Council resolutions, motions, and City Council approved review criteria. Title 20 specifies the projects that DRB has specific authority to review. And those projects are noted on this slide. They include exceptions from neighborhood character boulevard overlay district standards, phases of planned unit developments as required by the City Council, signage requests, and then section 2085-080 in Title 20 includes design review approval for specific sections. So in the neighborhood character South Riverfront overlay, any exceptions would go to DRB. Design excellence overlay, the review process for those projects that choose to go to DRB or staff sends them to DRB. Multi-dwelling building alternative compliance requests, townhouse alternative compliance requests, wireless communication facilities, exceptions to those rules, landscaping alternative compliance requests, and residential expansions of a non-conforming structure. City Council established review procedures for DRB projects in Title 20. It's included in section 2085-080. And the procedures specify that design review, DRB review, only applies to projects specified in Title 20. DRB review of a proposal is initiated by the owner of the subject property or their agent. DRB review requires a public hearing and notification per Title 20. Staff review and report is based on the review criteria in Title 20. And the DRB review and action is also based on the review criteria in Title 20. The general DRB review criteria are shown on this slide. And they include that buildings create a positive relationship with the urban and natural environment. The site design addresses open space, light, views, and protects natural features. The uses are compatible with adjacent properties in terms of physical design elements, and the project is functional and safe in terms of access for vehicles, bikes, and pedestrians. And that was a summary of what the specific standards say. The DRB review criteria for alternative compliance proposals and design excellence review proposals are shown on this slide. So alternative compliance plans are reviewed with 2 additional criteria. The proposal does a good or better job of meeting the intent of the subject regulation and the zoning ordinance as a whole, then strict compliance with the standard from which relief is sought. And the development will result in a project design that is as good or better than if the proposal met the zoning standard from which relief is sought. Within the design excellence overlay, the design guidelines of the Design Excellence Manual are the applicable review criteria. Title 20 also specifies the DRB approval procedures. So DRB must take action to approve with modifications or conditions, or deny the application based on the review criteria in Title 20. DRB's decision must be supported by written findings of fact. So if a DRB member is voting in support of the staff recommendation, the findings of fact are in the staff report. If a DRB member is voting contrary to the staff recommendation, the member must state reasons for their vote tied to the review criteria. Staff will document the DRB decision in a letter sent to the applicant. The findings of fact in the written decision letter will be the findings of fact from those members representing the majority of the votes. So public hearings for city boards follow Robert's Rules of Order. The city's website includes a board member resources page that provides a link to a document titled Robert Rules of Order cheat sheet. It's at the bottom here, highlighted in yellow, and this is the link to the site. So this table is an excerpt from the Robert Rules of Order cheat sheet and includes important information on what actions require a second, the type of vote needed, and other information to ensure actions by the board are valid. The Robert Rules of Order cheat sheet includes several pages with procedures for handling motions. Members, staff, and the public must raise their hand and be recognized by the chair before speaking. The cheat sheet includes procedures for all sorts of actions, including how to amend a motion. These rules ensure that meetings are conducted in a fair and considerate way. So that's all I have to present today. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the regulatory framework for board action and rules for conducting a public hearing.
Thank you, Mary. That was super insightful. Do any of the board members have any questions for staff, Mary, on procedures and how to kind of move forward from here? Not hearing any. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, Mary, to kind of talk about what happened last time, or do we wait for the public hearings portion?
I think you would cover that in the public hearing portion, and I think
Okay.
Madison is going to explain that
Okay,
at the beginning of her
great.
presentation.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Mary. Appreciate that. I think we can all kind of file that in our personal files and refer to that kind of moving forward. That's really helpful. Thank you. Because I think overall, there's some board members that have been on the board for a while, and then I can say for myself, I'm a new chair, so I'm kind of relearning all of the procedures, and we had to have a kind of a new board here. So appreciate everyone's patience and all that moving forward. So let's go to agenda item number 6, public hearings. Madsen, take it away.
Awesome, thank you. Let me get my screen shared. Excellent, everybody can see this?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect, thank you. So, thank you for hearing me again. Adam Hertz from Palazzo Properties has submitted a request for alternative compliance to the activity area requirements of Title 20 for his new multi-dwelling development. The Design Review Board is authorized to review and act on landscaping plans that are not in strict compliance with Title 20 landscaping requirements. In order for the Design Review Board to approve exceptions to the activity area requirements, the proposal must meet the overall intent and purposes of the landscaping chapter, in addition to other applicable criteria. This item was on the agenda at the last DRB hearing in January. At the last hearing, the motion for approval failed to pass, meaning it did not get enough votes. Title 20 requires the Design Review Board to vote to approve, approve with conditions, or deny the request. After the recommended motion failed to pass, the board did not make another motion. The board must approve a motion, whether it be for approval, approval with conditions, or denial. This means that the hearing was left open, which is why this item is being heard again today. So the subject property is located at 1841 South 7th Street West. The property is bisected by an existing irrigation ditch. It is located in the Franklin to the Fort neighborhood between Russell and Reserve Street. The property is zoned RM 145 residential multi-dwelling. Abutting parcels are also zoned RM 145. The RM 145 zoning district permits residential uses and all residential building types, including detached house, duplex, townhouse, and multi-dwelling buildings. The applicable regional plan is the R-Missoula City Growth Policy 2035, which recommends a land use designation of residential high density. Residential high density land uses permit 24 to 43 dwelling units per acre. The RM 145 zoning district permits 1 dwelling unit per 1,000 square feet of parcel area, which equates to a maximum density of 15 dwelling units on the subject parcel. Structures allowed in the residential high density land use designation include small lot single dwelling, large scale multi-story, and multi-dwelling development. Multi-dwelling structures are expected to have a pedestrian relationship and parking screened from view. Relatable zoning districts to this land use type are RM 135, RM 145, RM 1.5, and RM 0.5. The proposed use of the site and surrounding uses are compatible with the land use designation outlined in the growth policy. So this is the site as it currently exists. The site is currently occupied by mobile homes, which have been gutted. You can see that near the irrigation ditch in the photo, there's very dense vegetation, reducing access to and visibility of the northwest corner of the parcel. The only current connection across the ditch at this location is in the right-of-way. Sidewalk installation across the entire frontage will be required for building permit approval, connecting the existing piece of sidewalk shown in this picture. And here is the proposal for the site. As this hearing is intended to focus exclusively on the proposal for the activity area, I have outlined and focused specifically on this space here on the right. The multi-dwelling building, other site landscaping, and parking must comply with all applicable regulations. One of the key components of this proposal includes the bridge that crosses the irrigation ditch and connects the 2 sides of the activity area. The bridge design has been reviewed and approved by the irrigation ditch company. The applicant is proposing to remove the very dense vegetation to create a usable, visible space. The vegetation will be replaced with a few trees offering shade. A picnic table is proposed to be located in the northwest corner of the site to promote passive recreation from one side to the other. Additionally, Public Works and Mobility reviewed this proposal and the corresponding site plans and did not identify an issue of quality of life and safety with the parking density and access from the alley that dead ends. Engineering has expressed that this is a standard requirement for all structures to load off of the alley per Title 20, Section 2060-60B, and is commonplace across the city. The city engineer, Troy Monroe, is present to answer any questions regarding access. This bridge, as proposed, is not the first of its kind in the neighborhood. Similar structures can be found at 8th and Grant, as well as the northwestern corner of Franklin Park. Additionally, the irrigation ditch at Franklin Park is used as a water feature to promote visual interest and passive recreation. The applicants requested deviations from Title 20 comprise: first, Title 20, Section 206520C1B, which states the common recreation area must be contiguous. The proposed activity area is bisected by the irrigation ditch and is thus not contiguous. Second, Title 20, Section 206520C1B1, which states the common recreation area must be centrally located within the proposed development. The proposed activity area is located in the northwest corner of the subject property and is thus not centrally located. And third, Title 20, Section 206520C1B3 states that the common recreation area must have a width that is no less than 40 feet and a length no more than 2 times the width. The proposed activity area, being bisected by the ditch, comprises 2 sections, each with a width of less than 40 feet. Were the ditch to be included in the width calculation, the absolute width of the activity area is 67 feet. So this is the site plan from the applicant, showing the width measurements and key features intended to meet the intent of providing for a common recreation area. You can see that the activity area is comprised of 2 sections. If the ditch were not there and the space were contiguous, the dimension requirements would be met. Title 20 requires that 20% of the parcel be designated as activity area. The activity area meets the minimum size requirements, not including the ditch in the measurements. Title 20 does not provide intent statements specific to activity areas. However, the contiguous requirement and dimension standards are to ensure activity areas are designed as usable spaces. The bridge connecting the 2 sides of the activity area creates space for useful for passive recreation. As previously stated, the required activity area square footage is compliant. The requirement that the activity area be centrally located ensures that it can be used by all residents on the site. The distance from the activity area to the furthest unit door is approximately 60 feet. Given that Title 20 does not provide specific intent statements for an activity area, the only intent statements for these requirements apply to the landscaping chapter as a whole. The landscaping regulations of Title 20 are intended to preserve, maintain, and enhance the beauty of the city of Missoula and to advance the following 12 listed purposes. Regarding the first purpose of planting and conserving trees and other vegetation to protect property values and mitigate impacts of climate change, the applicant proposes to plant 11 trees, conserve existing trees where feasible, and plant 65 shrubs on the site. Regarding the second purpose of mitigating the impact of high-intensity land uses on lower-intensity land uses, the applicant is in full compliance with Title 20 landscape buffer requirements that exist to address these impacts. Abutting parcels to the east contain detached houses which are lower intensity than multi-dwelling. A buffer is provided along the east side. Regarding the third purpose of conscientious and prudent landscape design, the applicant's proposal includes an intent to comply with the standards set by the Associated Landscape Contractors of America, ALCA, exceeding Title 20 landscape maintenance requirements. Regarding the fourth purpose of improving air quality, the landscaping provided by the applicant exceeds the minimum requirements. Regarding the fifth purpose of protecting water quality and mitigating stormwater runoff, the applicant is following parking lot landscaping requirements, increasing permeable surfaces among the impermeable pavement, and in leaving the irrigation ditch uncovered, enables for utmost permeability and water channelization in the event of storms and flooding. Regarding the sixth purpose of providing shade, the applicant is proposing to plant 11 trees and maintain existing trees where feasible. Regarding the seventh purpose of reducing the impacts of noise and glare, the applicant is in complete compliance with Title 20 buffering, screening, and street frontage landscaping requirements. A buffer is provided along the eastern property line and the activity area on the west end of the site creates landscape distance between this development and the multi-dwelling structure to the west. The activity area is located near the street, with parking located to the rear, which reduces the impacts of vehicular uses along the street. Regarding the eighth purpose of enhancing pedestrian areas, the activity area abuts the street, creating a visually attractive landscaped area along the public sidewalk. The applicant will provide street frontage landscaping, and the proposed project will require installation of sidewalk along 7th Street for use of all pedestrians. Regarding the ninth purpose of using landscaping to break up the visual and impermeable impact of parking lots, the applicant's proposal complies with Title 20 parking lot landscaping requirements. Regarding the 10th purpose of enhancing the quality and appearance of the development projects, the applicant intends to comply with the aforementioned ALCA standards, and by locating the recreation area near the street, activates the pedestrian space and view from the public right-of-way. Regarding the 11th purpose of promoting sustainable and conscientious landscape practices, the applicant proposes planting 12 different species of both trees and shrubs. Regarding the 12th and final purpose of the Title 20 landscaping chapter, encouraging the use of licensed landscape architects within the state, the current proposal does not include oversight or review from a licensed landscape architect outside of the review of the design review board members this evening. The board's decision ultimately must be based on the review criteria outlined in Title 20, Section 208580H. If the board has findings of fact different from those in the staff report, they shall state them for the record so that staff may document the decision in the letter to the applicant. Staff's findings of fact for the following design review approval criteria are as follows. Regarding criterion A, that new buildings and structures are located to create a positive relationship with their environment, both urban and natural. The placement of the bridge in the activity area plays a key role in creating a positive relationship between users and the western half of the site. The bridge is centrally located, open for passive recreation, and physically connects the activity area on either side of the ditch. The extensive landscaping, screening, and concealment of parking in the rear of the property also aims to keep the site as aesthetically activated as possible, while still buffering the uses on the site from neighboring properties. A fence and 5-foot landscape buffer area are proposed along the eastern property line, which abuts a detached house. This development additionally triggers the requirement for sidewalk construction along the right-of-way where none currently exists. The placement of the activity area creates visual interest along the street frontage. Regarding criterion B, that the site design properly addresses building orientation, open space, light, sun exposure, views, and protection of natural features. The building location in relation to the activity area allows for southern and western sun to reach the activity area. Shade trees are provided in the activity area to mitigate heat and evaporation from the irrigation ditch. The ditch, being kept open, is being daylit as a water feature, and other open space, not counted toward the activity area requirement, is provided around the property. Regarding criterion C, the building structures and uses are compatible with adjacent properties and uses in terms of physical design elements such as volume and mass management, building materials, color, open space design, screening, and any design elements considered important by the design review board. The applicant proposes to maintain compatibility with the surrounding area through a mix of aesthetic and accessibility improvements, as well as conscientious buffering, using both landscaping and open space as buffers. The ditch is left unobstructed, similar to neighboring approaches, and the proposed bridge is consistent with existing bridges on A Street and in Franklin Park. Within zoning criteria, the proposed multi-dwelling building is consistent with the allowed uses in the zone and the growth policy land use designation. There are additional multi-dwelling buildings in the neighborhood and on the same block. Regarding criterion D, that the overall project will be attractive, functional, and safe in terms of pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular access, parking, loading, and servicing. Accessibility is addressed in various ways on the site. There is a pedestrian walkway running through the entire site from the public right-of-way to the parking in the rear. The parking being located in the rear protects the pedestrian environment by eliminating the need for curb cuts, avoids conflict with the activity area, and enables for the streetscape to be activated by architecture and landscaping rather than being engrossed by concrete lots. The parking, additionally, does not conflict with bicycle access from the street and the bicycle parking located more centrally on the site. The bridge, additionally, will be fitted with railings to enable safe crossing for all users. And to reiterate, there were no identified issues regarding quality of life and safety with the parking density and access from the alley that dead ends. And engineering has expressed that this is a standard requirement for all structures to load off of the alley per Title 20, Section 2060-60B, and is commonplace across the city. Again, the city engineer, Troy Monroe, is present to answer questions regarding access. Title 20, Section 2085-80H2 states that alternative compliance plans proposing deviations from otherwise applicable development standards may be approved by the Design Review Board only when they determine that a proposed plan will result in a project that does as good or better job of meeting the overall intent of the subject regulations and will result in a project design that is as good or better than with strict compliance with the standard from which relief is sought. The purposes of the landscaping chapter are to enhance livability by planting and conserving trees, mitigating possible adverse impacts of higher intensity land uses located adjacent to lower intensity land uses, protecting water quality, improving air quality, mitigating heat by providing shade, improving pedestrian areas, enhancing the quality and appearance of a site, and reducing noise and glare. The project meets the intent of the landscaping requirements outlined in Title 20 by mitigating heat and water evaporation by providing shade, enhancing pedestrian areas, enhancing the quality and appearance of the site, and buffering surrounding properties from noise and site disturbances. The required activity area percentage is met, and it is accessible from several points on the property. By incorporating the ditch as a feature for passive recreation, it is activated, attractive, and best utilizes space on the subject property. So staff recommends that the Missoula Design Review Board approve their request for exceptions to Title 20, Section 206520C1B. The common recreation area must be contiguous. Title 20, Section 206520C1B1. The common recreation area must be centrally located. And Title 20, Section 206520C1B3, the common recreation area must have a length no more than 2 times its width, with the width that is no less than 40 feet, subject to the recommended conditions of approval based on the finding of fact in the staff report and testimony heard at the public hearing. Staff recommends 2 conditions of approval. Condition 1, plans for the common recreation area submitted at time of building permit application shall comply with all applicable portions of Title 20 and shall substantially conform to the plan submitted at time of Design Review Board review, subject to review and approval by Development Services and Parks and Recreation prior to building permit approval. And condition number 2, the applicant shall provide adequate proof of ownership or control of the parts of Lot 14 lying west of the Miller Cave Cannon irrigation ditch, showing ownership or control of those parts of the activity area on both sides of the ditch as shown on the submitted application, subject to review and approval by Development Services prior to building permit submittal. Proof of ownership or control may be made by obtaining title insurance covering that area, order of a court of competent jurisdiction in a quiet title action, quit claim conveyance, by the identified owner of that area, or any other means deemed sufficient by Development Services to provide adequate proof of ownership. This concludes my presentation. I will be here if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madsen. I appreciate that. I think probably we have some questions here, but as customary, we typically ask the applicant first to speak if they'd like to speak again. I see that Adam Hertz has his hand up, so I'd love to. So I promote to panelists. Adam, is that how I do it?
Yes.
I assume yes. All right. Let's see. Looks like he's now a panelist. So the floor is yours, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Madsen, for the great detailed explanation of this project. I don't have a whole lot to add. other than I appreciate consideration from the Design Review Board. As Madsen pointed out, we've really gone through every detail in this project, with the exception of this activity area that we are seeking a variance on. I think you have a lot of information based on the last meeting that we had. One thing I would note that maybe I didn't clarify, not specific to the criteria you are reviewing, but this is a fully designed project with full building plans, structural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering. Civil engineering has been completed. This is a full design package ready to break ground and provide 12 units of much needed housing in Missoula during a housing crisis. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Adam. I have a question for staff. Would we want to ask for public comment first, or can we debate kind of internally within board members? What do you think we should do? Maybe I'll ask Kazi or Madsen that question, or even Mary.
I was going to
think-
say,
Go ahead,
Mary.
Cassie. No.
I was going to say I've seen it done both ways recently. So
Okay.
Sometimes it's helpful to ask for questions from the board, right? If they have any specific questions, and then you might open up for public comment, and then you can get the motion on the table and then have discussion on the motion. And that's when
Perfect.
you can continue it.
Perfect. Let's do that. I like that. So questions from the board to staff on the staff presentation. I have one, but I'll hold my question till the end and let everyone else join the discussion here. Does anyone have some questions or thoughts based on the presentation last time and what we saw today? Heather?
For clarification, we are discussing, and our purview in this meeting is the 3 exceptions to the open space requirement that you have articulated in the presentation, but also are we able to speak to other things in that? I should have looked up title statute in Title 20, the other global pieces associated with buildings or anything like that. What is our purview of discussion and voting?
Madsen, do you want to bring the presentation up again?
I was going to
those 2
say,
slides?
I can bring that.
Yeah.
I was just looking at that. Let me make it larger. So yes, section or Title 20 is
H1
85 80 H1 right C does say at the end, that last line, any design elements considered important by the design review board. I would say that for, or maybe to prevent scope creep, often that's when it's helpful to come back to the 3 criteria for which deviation is sought.
Perfect. That helps with clarification, because I would assume if more were on the table, we would have had a presentation of that nature. We would have seen full architectural renderings or anything like that. It's about the three points of deviation.
And if it is helpful, I can keep the site plan up. Just let me know.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful to bring the site plan up. I have.
Okay.
Do any other board members have any questions about the staff presentation? Brian, Don, Maria, Levi, Karen, Maria. I have one question then, if no one else does. So this 40-foot minimum width, right? Does it clarify in Title 20 dimension or the shape of the activity area specifically? Because if you bring up that redlined site plan that you had, I think the slide after this with the dimensions on the street frontage. Yeah, that one. So it's 30, 22 at the ditch, 15, but the technical rec area, not including the ditch, is essentially a triangle shape. right? So you're measuring from the street frontage, that 30 feet. Does Title 20 talk about specifically the shape of the recreation area? Because
Title 20
one could
not,
imagine, yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say Title 20 does not talk about specific shapes or polygons, but it does say that the minimum width is 40 feet, and then it should have a length, what is it, no greater than 2 times its width. So in some ways that sounds like a rectangle, but I think that if they meant rectangle would say that. And so I think that that's open for flexibility.
The second part of my question is, can we get an exact square footage? And maybe you had this in your presentation, and I apologize if I missed it. But if you took the square foot area, and I wrote this down, the 1985 of recreation area and the 1677 of the ditch area, is that square footage more than a typical 40-foot width minimum and that dimension you just stated? I guess
I'm having trouble understanding your question.
Yeah, the cumulative area between the two pieces, if the ditch wasn't there, if you just put those two triangles together, is that square footage still meet the total required by Title 20?
Yes, Madsen, you have that number somewhere in your report.
I do have that number in the staff report.
But yeah, if the ditch didn't exist, where you see sort of those heavier weight lines and you push the two pieces together, it would equal that 20% requirement that you would see on any project.
Thank you, the 20%. So 20% of the lot area is how many square feet? Do we know?
Not off the top of my head.
Certainly pull.
So if I'm right,
Cassie, if you want to grab the staff report, that would be useful. I also know that for this proposal, the applicant has also incorporated, which is allowed, using patios and balconies as part of that common recreation area or activity area space. And so the square footages of those for each unit is considered or is comprised in the total activity area being proposed.
Yes.
So what I'm seeing is 3,015 square feet are required and 3,025 square feet are provided.
I know that what is provided is slightly above what is required. I don't have the
Okay, I got it pulled up.
Thank you.
So activity areas, like Madsen said, can include common recreation area, like we're looking at today, in addition to patios and balconies, which have some slightly different weightings. So the 20% requirement for this site, let's see. Sorry, I'm just reading through all these numbers. So there, let's see. Sorry. Okay, they require 1,975 square feet for this parcel. They're providing 1,985 square feet, so they're 10 feet over, or 10 square feet over the requirement.
Thank you. Very specific. That's great. So that 1985 provided, 1975 required.
Correct.
And that's activity area, patios, that's open space.
All of
Okay.
those combined.
All those combined.
Yep.
Gotcha.
You
Thank
know,
you for clarifying that.
just a quick note, it looks like on the plan itself, it doesn't even take into those patios because the lawn outdoor rec area is 1175 on the right side and 810 on the left side. Brandon, just to note that.
Yep, so they are above that. Sorry, we did that inaccurately then in the report. So they'd be well beyond that once you factor in patios and balconies.
Cassie, I do believe that that was what was remaining after factoring in the patios and balconies. The remaining requirement was 1970.
Gotcha. So you already subtracted that.
Mhm.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, I'm
So
seeing
it's-
the exhibit says 3,015 square feet are required. That's 20% of the
Yeah.
total site area.
I can read verbatim this code section instead of just trying to pick these numbers out. That could be helpful. Or sorry, this staff report section. So the requirement that the activity area be 20% of the total site area is met. The total area of open space in the northwest corner of the subject property, including the irrigation ditch, is 3,687 square feet. The area without the irrigation ditch is 1,985 square feet. This exceeds the required 1,975 square feet of activity area after accounting for decks, 320 square feet, and patios, 720 square feet. So with the common recreation area alone, they're exceeding it. And then they go above and beyond with those balconies and patios.
Okay, sounds good. Do any other board members have questions about staff presentation before we ask for public comment? All right, I'm seeing none. So we have a few attendees online here. Would anyone like to raise their hand and provide public comment today so far here tonight? I see Rochelle's hand up and a Zoom user. Let's do the Zoom user first. Let's see. Allow to talk. Zoom user. Go ahead. Floor is yours. It looks like you're on mute. Looks like your talking is permitted, but you're muted. Okay, maybe that's.
You might be able to unmute them in the panelist page and the little.
Yeah,
side.
I'm in the attendees tab and I say ask to unmute. And okay, they've logged off now. So maybe that was just a bug. Let's ask Rochelle to talk. There we go. Rochelle.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
we can hear you.
So I have a few things. I think I wanted to back up a little bit with regard to the rules for conducting the design review board meetings first. And I guess I would just start by saying that, and I'm quoting here from a legal opinion of the city attorneys. It's one of the ones posted on the site with guidance for the board members. Legal opinion 2008-015. In it, okay. And so in that legal opinion, it states that it's important for land use decision makers to avoid weakening public confidence or undermining a sense of security of individual property owner rights, as well as to an impartial, fair public process with respect to land use decision making for specific subdivision and zoning application proposals or projects. And when I look at the bylaws for the design review board, it says under Article 9, discussion and vote, there's A and then there's B, which is entitled vote. It says votes shall be taken after a motion has been made and seconded. And then it goes on to say, Bear with me. That vote shall be made by roll call. And then number 3, it says a simple majority of board members present shall be required to pass any motion. In the event of a tie vote, the motion fails. Okay, so at our last board meeting on January 12th, there was a motion made by the Development or Developer Services Division to approve the deviation requests. There was a call for vote. There were 3 ayes, there were 3 nays, and there was one abstaining, Donald Briggs. He disqualified himself. I think that probably falls under the conflict of interest, catch-all provision. And so my understanding then, based upon the information that was presented here in the education portion at the beginning, is that there is the first motion by Development Services Division to approve the deviation requests. And in this case, because there was a tie, they did not get the required quorum +1. And as per the rules, in the event of a tie vote, the motion fails, right? But if I understand it correctly, what they're saying is not only is there the first motion that is voted upon and it fails, it requires a second motion to deny the request after you already move. After the request is already made and voted upon and rejected, right? Which is what happened here. And if I review the city attorney's position, his memo, I think he says that what didn't happen that should have happened, aside from having 2 votes, one to fail to pass and then a second vote to actually deny a second motion, but he's saying that it wasn't seconded. The motion to vote on the request for deviation wasn't seconded, and then there wasn't a separate motion after the board denied the request. There wasn't a second motion to deny it, right? Okay, so here we are. We've got procedural irregularities, but it was the clear intent of the board not to pass the request for deviation. There were no conditions articulated by the board, and the requests were simply denied. Okay, so what this looks like to me is thinly veiled attempt to take a second bite at the apple, because the intent of the board was not to pass these requests, right? So I think that it does not fulfill the requirements of what the city attorney's legal opinion says. It does not create faith in the government, or that there were fair procedures. I asked what actually prompted this to come back before the board, and I really didn't get much of a response from that. And so I think that really, as per the city attorney's memo, what really needs to happen is to go back to what was the unfinished business at the January 12th meeting. The motion will be made, the motion will be seconded, it will go to the vote fails to pass it, and then there's a second motion to actually deny the request. So I think that that's what should happen here. I think that everything that's come to light since January 12th reinforces the fact that this isn't compatible for the space, okay? And I haven't heard them bring it up tonight, but in my communication that was part of the public comments when I talked to the fire marshal, He indicated that he was familiar with this project, that it was his understanding that the height of the building would be no more than 30 feet. That is because there was not adequate space in the alley to turn around a fire truck, and there was too much setback from 7th Street. Okay, so that was presented after the January 12th meeting. In addition to this new information, that ownership of lot 14 west of the ditch is uncertain. Ownership of lot 15 east of the ditch is also unclear as per the city attorney's opinion. So if we're looking at section 20.100.010, and we're talking about what the actual definition is of a parcel, under the developers, there's supposed to be single ownership or control of the parcel when they submit the initial application to the design review board. Okay, so that wasn't done here. We don't even know what the ownership is of the parcels that we're speaking of, I think 14 and 15. So I think to try to resolve this through a second condition is circumventing the entire process, and it doesn't meet the initial requirements of the application that there's actual single ownership of the subject property, right? So I think that this needs to go back and it needs to be the subject of a second application. There wasn't due diligence. There wasn't a survey. Adam Hurt says he's gone through every detail of this project. I think knowing if you actually, where the property lines are would be a very important first detail of the project before you submit an application. So the application cannot be cured through this proposal of this second condition. They need to go back to square one. And the way this entire process has happened does not help to maintain public confidence in this proceeding. I think the development service provision is very clearly promoting the objectives which are profit driven of the developer. And I ask, what is the representation of the neighborhood citizens here? And I would say that it's the design review board. And so I would ask, according to the review criteria, that the appropriate motions and seconds and denials are made, that you find that the application is not appropriate and needs to go back to square one because they don't even know what the parcel is that is owned. Information about the city engineer can come in and has said that he hasn't identified any issue with the quality of life or safety. I think listen to the actual residents who are there. We know more about the quality of life and what it means to have a 12-spot parking lot down a narrow, unpaved, dead-end alley that is already clogged with numerous garages and traffic. If you went down there, if you lived there, you know that the quality of life is already impacted by the use that exists in that actual alley. Okay, so I don't need the city engineer to tell me that the quality of life and safety is impacted. I think the fire marshal bringing up issues with regard to access for that is very important. And if you look at the actual review criteria, 2085-080H1, we are talking about D. The overall project will be attractive, functional, and safe in terms of pedestrian, bicycle, vehicular access, parking, loading, and servicing. That will not happen. And you might say that it's in compliance with certain things, that there's a positive relationship under design criteria, review criteria A, but that's more than the bridge. What's happening here, because of a lack of centralized contiguous, we don't even know who owns the other side of the bridge, right? That they're trying to merge and say that they should get credit for that area. But to say that that is not impacted, that the residents, their quality of life, the functioning is not impacted. What they've done is they've pushed, because they're not centrally locating these common areas, they push all of the development along that eastern border. Okay, so you've got something that isn't even oriented to the street. They've got this fiction of this porch, but that is the side of the building. The balconies should be on the front. Right now, I would have no less than 24 windows within a close proximity to my property. If you look under the landscaping requirements and the purpose that they spoke to about mitigating the possible adverse effects of higher intensity land uses located adjacent to lower intensity land uses, the buffer, the 5-foot buffer, is insufficient. Okay, 24 windows, there isn't an adequate buffer there. So this is a horrible plan. It needs to go back to square one. We don't even know what the parcel is, okay? And as per the requirements, that needs to be under common ownership. And we have very real concerns that residents who live there, in terms of our quality of life and the safety and functioning of having that parking lot there. So I would strongly urge the board members to understand that a procedural irregularity is being used to try to exploit that to get a second bite of the apple and to meet the objectives of the developer. But what about those of the citizens and the neighbors in that community, in that neighborhood? That's all.
Thank you, Rochelle. Appreciate your comments there. Ryan, I see that you're on the call. Can you offer any expertise on what Rochelle just said there as far as the procedural things? And I know there was some questions kind of directed straight at city attorney.
Yeah, hi, this is Ryan Sudbury. I'm a deputy city attorney for the city of Missoula. I work with the development services and public works folks mostly. I certainly understand the frustration voiced by Rochelle and the commenter. I understand, frankly, probably the frustration of some of the board members having to come back on this issue that they already addressed. However, our goal here is to have a valid final decision on this. The city code requires an action to be taken to approve or deny or approve with modifications. And the issue that we had that was presented to me, because after the last meeting, the development services staff were concerned that there wasn't a valid final action, and they sort of explained it to me. And I expressed, sort of seconded their concern. I don't think what happened at the last meeting sounds like it was valid, unfortunately. I mean, I think there was a question, and this was highlighted by the commenter, there was a question whether the motion was made appropriately with a second. And, but even assuming it was, and it failed, that just meant that motion failed. It didn't mean that there was a subsequent final action. And so I understand that it's sort of implied that if a motion to approve fails, that means it's denied, but that's not how it works. You have to take an action to either approve or deny it, or approve with modification. So that's what we need here, and we need the motion. It would be good to follow the proper procedures in approving it and having a second and having a vote. If it's to deny it, that's fine. The city doesn't have a dog in the fight except to make sure that the procedures are followed correctly. And without a final motion or final action from the board, the applicant is left in a precarious position of what do they do next? If they want to appeal it pursuant to the terms of Title 20 to City Council, it needs to be a final action from the board. And I think there's certainly a strong argument to be made that there wasn't a final action, and therefore he doesn't have standing to appeal to the City Council. So he's sort of boxed in there, So I don't know if I've addressed all those concerns. I don't think the issues from the appearance of fairness from the legal opinion. I mean, I hear those concerns. I hear frustration with this coming back to the design review board, but that's the way you have to fix it. You have to have your final action. That the code even anticipates the possibility of something being discussed at a public hearing and then coming back to the design review board for final action to approve with modifications or deny it. So you could, and the reason it's set up that way is because you could have a motion to approve, just as you did, discuss it, and then have it fail or have a tie, and then subsequent conversation happens, and the design review board asks for some follow-up information to clarify, or if there's questions that made people vote against it, to come back to try and persuade them or change their mind as to why they should vote a different way subsequently. So essentially without the final action, it's been tabled and it's still open. So yeah, Matt, if there are other issues that you think I need to get at to address those concerns and provide you a path forward, I'm happy to do that. But that was sort of my thinking at the moment.
Thank you, Ryan. That was very helpful. I think helpful for everyone to hear that. It looks like Brian has his hand up. Brian, you have the floor if you want to comment.
Yes, I just had a question for Ryan to further clarify. So if the board cannot come to a conclusion, if we have a stalemate, we tied obviously in our vote. If we would have tied again on a subsequent vote or on a vote for denial, then do we just, is the next step basically to potentially table it like we did, or like we did not meaning to, or is that another motion that can be filed, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's no good way, and it would be nice if in either the bylaws or in the city code it provided for, what happens if votes to approve consistently fail or tie, fail for lack of getting a majority. If you took 3 votes and they all failed, then it's deemed denied or something like that. I think that would be the way, or some number. I mean, maybe it's just 1 vote. But it doesn't say that, unfortunately. So it says, you got to take action to approve or deny. What I would suggest is if you go around and you've taken a vote on it and it fails or ties, fails because it ties, and there's more discussion and there's a motion to deny it, and that also fails or ties, and there's sort of no resolution to the issue, and the board is at a stalemate. At that point, I would suggest that the board chair, depending on what side they're on, or the vice chair, somebody else who would vote to approve it, simply vote to deny it, to move the item along effectively. I mean, to close the consideration by the board and then allow it to be appealed to city council, or just give the applicant sort of the final word on the matter and have them go back to the drawing board.
Okay, I understand. So basically agree to disagree essentially, and be able to file a motion so that the applicant can take the next action on their part, or decide what their next action on their part is.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Cassie, you have your hand up. What was yours?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, in that it is pretty common, because your options aren't just approval or denial. You can come up with conditions to modify it to something that better meets the review criteria. So that is somewhere where you could potentially meet or find a middle ground.
Yeah, Cassie, that's an important part of that too. Thanks for clarifying that. It looks like a question for staff. Sorry, I just muted myself. Question for staff. I hate to get all technical, but when we're soliciting public comment, what's the time max for folks to make public comment? I'd like to be really generous with time here. I mean, I don't want to be too formal about things, but what is that time period? Is it a few minutes, 10 minutes? What is that?
Typically, it's 3 minutes per person. And, folks usually you'll give someone a warning that they're at 3 minutes and they should try to wrap up their comments. That's what
Okay,
the time
thank
frame
you.
is for city council and LUP and other boards.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that reminder. It looks like, Rochelle, you have your hand up again. And I very much want you to talk, but in the effort of keeping time tonight, and we want to definitely have a discussion with board members, keep your comments kind of, I guess, succinct, for lack of a better word. But yeah, go ahead. Your floor is yours, Rochelle.
Okay, all I was going to say is that, your bylaws do say a simple majority of board members present shall be required to pass any motion. In the event of a tie vote, the motion fails. Okay, so the last time you all met, you specifically declined to create any conditions as is being floated around right now. And that's because you understood that the zoning rules were there for a reason, and that if there's just a bunch of exceptions and deviations, then that kind of defeats the entire purpose of the rules. So I think here, part of it is really just thinking that this is too large of a development, and it's only in front of you because it's more than 10 units, and that's what is bringing it before the board in the first place, is my understanding. That's all.
Thank you, Rochelle. Appreciate that. Board members, discussion about tonight and the agenda item here. Questions, comments, general discussion. I'd love to hear kind of feedback in addition to what we talked about that. Heather, go ahead, the floor is yours.
I guess I had a couple more clarification questions for staff. Wanted to make sure there were things that I thought that we probably missed last time and after thinking about it afterwards, but I'm assuming, I thought I read in our bylaws that if there is a no vote or a denial, that we have to give context as to why if we vote no. Is that is part of our bylaws, is it not? We have to give context to the no vote. Madsen?
Yeah, it's not my understanding that that is a part of the bylaws as much as it has been tied to the Title 20 requirements, to tie the decisions to finding of fact, mainly so that when I create the staff report post this meeting, I am able to include that for the applicant as well, so that they have some understanding on how they can go forward, and we have that documented as well.
Great. I knew I'd been told we were supposed to do that. I just don't remember where. So thank you. And Mary, go ahead.
And those reasons need to be tied to the criteria, because that's what you're charged with reviewing these applications, is based on the criteria. So there's the general criteria plus the 2 for alternative compliance specific to this.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Comments from other board members, questions, conversation. So I think it's pretty clear tonight. We have to, there's 3 options. We can agree with the motion provided by staff with the conditions approved. We can, secondly, we can create a motion to approve the applicant with additional conditions, or we can have a motion to deny the applicant. Those 3 options are on the table. That's very important. One question I had, if you want to bring up the site plan again, Madsen.
Yes, just give me 1 second.
I guess it's less of a question and more of a comment. And I think this was something I missed last time. But the shape of this recreation area is something that I'm wondering about, struggling with, is that if it was rectilinear, if it was more I guess yeah, more rectilinear, more shaped where more kind of active recreation could be had. I think that would be a little bit different in my opinion. The recreation area west of the ditch there, you know, it's a triangle piece of land. It, you know, I don't know how much that's going to be used. And I'm wondering if, you know, you mentioned Kazia, a middle ground here on this. And I will like to note that Donald is present tonight, and I assume Don has all the information at hand and he will be able to vote tonight. So we likely won't get into a stalemate like we did last time with 3 votes and 3 votes, or, you know, 6 total. We would have 7 voting members. So, you know, I guess the question for board members, is there anything that we can talk about internally here that would make this recreation better, so that we could have a path for the applicant here? You know, that we do have a, you know, jurisdiction, authority, whatever you want to call that, on design suggestions within the topic area here. So I don't know what those are, but I think we should, the applicant deserves a conversation about something on that. I will also like to say that, you know, it's hard in these situations not to hear strongly from neighbors and public comment. I understand a lot of these questions and comments coming from neighbors are not of the specific recreation area, but it's hard for me to learn about other things going on in this project that are, at least from a neighbor point of view, not ideal. So I will say that the public comments, the people on the Zoom tonight, all your opinions, at least from my point of view, are very much welcomed. I think that public process is very good, and this is healthy. And you know, I really appreciate people spending time. It's a, you know, Wednesday night at 7:30, and you're on a Zoom meeting at the Design Review Board. We typically don't get this attendance, so it's a matter that we're all thinking about really closely, and you know, just take very seriously. You know, we're all trained professionals, and we're on this board for hopefully a reason. So it's not taken lightly. So board members, is there any other questions or comments, discussion, or is someone brave enough to provide a motion to the floor or suggest a motion to proceed?
Hey, Brandon, can I?
Ryan, yeah, floor is yours.
Just for clarification, because the discussion's kind of, this meeting as well as the last meeting has kind of gone all over the board in terms of the project. But my understanding is that what we're voting on really pertains to the 3 exceptions to the common recreation area. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And I know Heather brought it up. I just wanted to make sure that I understood that correctly.
Absolutely, Ryan. I think, you know, we all hear that loud and clear. Again, it's hard for me to hear the public comment and not, you know, we have to hear public comment. That's part of our job as board members, is to hear public comment, even though it's not part of this recreation area. I think there's some certain conversation around this recreation area that I am wondering about. So any other board members want to talk about the recreation area, things to offer up, you know, this picnic table, contiguous area, the bridge design? You know, I'm looking for something from board members here. I do see Adam's hand up. If no other board members want to talk, I'd like to let Adam speak.
Go ahead.
Okay. Adam, I think you're good to go.
Thank you. I do just want to clarify, you know, based on a conversation of kind of the split activity area, this was really a function of me brainstorming this with Neil Miner from Parks and Rec, who oversees parks design and reviews these types of things when building permits are reviewed. And I sought guidance from Neil on this. It wasn't just like, hey, we're trying to cram this idea, through the city process. It was really Neil's suggestion that the area east of the ditch provides a nice active recreation area where someone can, throw a ball or, kick a ball, play fetch with their dog, whatever the case is. And it's also important in Parks and Rec's view, and in my view, to have an area for what they call passive recreation, which is, a quiet space to have a picnic or read a book or, relax in the shade or whatever the case is. So the intent of these activity areas is not necessarily always 100% active. Sometimes they get unique. We have another project where we're incorporating a part of a fire turnaround with a basketball hoop into it. There's some flexibility here in my experience, and we like to provide an area that folks would love to use. I don't want to get way off topic about ownership, but the assertion that I do not own that area is completely unfounded. I recognize that I have to respond to that assertion because it's been made. And that's unfortunate. I have had the area surveyed. I got title insurance on it. We did a chain of title search back to the 1960s. Very confident that I own this parcel, and certainly will address that. And I'm totally fine with that condition being part of an approval because I know that I can fairly easily clear that condition. And just with regard to, other aspects of design, I think there's a lot of misinformation floating out there. The fire has approved, their portion of this project. The eaves cannot be higher than 30 feet. They are not higher than 30 feet. Engineering has reviewed it. I believe a requirement is that we would have to pave the alley. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that's one of the requirements. So, truly, we've followed the city's zoning code with the exception of, this one little piece that is frankly impossible to follow to the exact letter of the law due to the fact that there's an irrigation ditch there, and we are trying our best to make it an amenity rather than have it, be what it is now, which is really an area that provides shelter for crime and, potential danger. And we think we can make it much nicer. And, with regard to public comment, I completely appreciate public comment and can appreciate being in your shoes, having been on city council myself years ago. The one thing that I tried to keep in mind in those discussions was that certainly there were times when a few unhappy neighbors showed up with their opinions. I try to keep in mind the 12 to 20 plus folks who are out there struggling to find housing in this market, sleeping on a couch, maybe homeless, unable to move to Missoula for a job that they love or move close to family. And those people aren't here expressing their support for this project. Their support is that they would love to live in these units when they're built.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. Heather, see your hand. Floor is yours.
Thank you. I just wanted to have Ryan, our attorney Ryan, answer the question in regard to, and I think I'm right, but with the condition of the title and not and the condition that is being proposed, that covers all bases, correct? I mean, if the applicant, if Adam can't prove that an ownership, project doesn't move forward. That's the intent of that condition, correct? So it's, even if I'm supposed to just trust him because he says he has title and he's gone back to 1960, the mechanism is in place. If it can't be cleared, the public is protected, essentially, correct? The project can't move forward.
Yeah. I think that's right. I mean, we would need to establish that the project has the authority to use that section of the property for the activity area. And if they don't have ownership or control over it, then it can't be counted toward the activity area.
No permit could be given and you can't build the project. Right. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that nuance.
That's good clarify. I see Levi's hand up. Levi's, floor is yours.
Thanks, Brandon. Question for the applicant. I'm curious about something that you just said regarding the housing crisis. Will any of these units be income restricted, or are they going to be market rate units?
These units are not income restricted by any kind of program or lending product or anything of that nature. We build them in such a way that we can keep them approximately what is deemed affordable by HUD at approximately 70% of area median income or so. Being, more affordable than that is basically impossible without a subsidy. I completely unrelated to this, sit on the Montana Board of Housing that reviews tax credit projects and affordable housing projects, and many of those, even with subsidy in some cases, at best are at 60% of AMI. So we're trying to keep them as affordable as possible. Part of that is through density, part of that is through design. But building costs are what they are, and lending costs are what they are. And I'm a firm believer that more supply means over time we at least hold rents steadier, or in an abundance of supply, reduce rents. And right now we have a massive supply shortage, which is why we've seen rents skyrocket so much. So I'm a firm believer that all inventory at every price point is good, but these certainly are not high-end rentals. They're kind of, I guess, what you would call middle market.
Thanks, Adam. Does that answer your question, Levi? I think you're on mute, Levi.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion items, board members? Well, I think we probably have two ways to go about this, at least initially, is revisit our original vote with Donald voting on the recommended motion provided by staff, or if anyone else has a motion they'd like to put on the floor to provide any alternative conditions in addition to those conditions staff provided on another motion that we can vote on. Those, we probably should start there unless someone wants to bring a motion to deny. Heather, it looks like you're thinking.
I was just trying to ask, I wanted to clarify if we actually knew what we can do next for certain, because I believe the previous hearing is still open. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well,
you can make your motion at this point. Yes.
Whatever motion you want, Heather.
I really want to make sure I do this right, but I think I would like to make the motion for staff's current recommendations, that with the two conditions, the one previously and then also the one with the land use or the land clarifications. So apologize for not wording that right, but that's the motion I'd like to make.
So great. So the motion on the floor is the current recommended motion provided by staff with the two conditions. To be sure, Madsen and Kazi, do you want to recite that motion so everyone Please. Understands what the motion on the floor is? And then after that, we're going to want to make sure we second that motion.
Of course, yes, I can reread this. So staff recommends that the Missoula Design Review Board approve the request for exceptions to Title 20, Section 206520 C1B. The common recreation area must be contiguous. Title 20, Section 206520 C1B1. The common recreation area must be centrally located. And Title 20, Section 206520 C1B3. The common recreation area must have a length no more than 2 times its width, with a width that is no less than 40 feet, subject to the recommended conditions of approval based on the finding of fact in the staff report and testimony heard at the public hearing. I want to read the condition, but Mary has her hand up.
I was just going to recommend that you state it's the recommended condition in the staff report and the second recommended condition in memo number 2.
So moved.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Can I get a second for that motion? We'd like to second that.
I'll second it.
I hear Maria second that motion. So the motion on the floor is presented by Heather and seconded by Maria. As motion presented by staff. So I think we should do a roll call vote. So staff, please help us with that roll call vote.
Briggs,
Oh, no.
I've asked him to unmute. I can come back if he's having technical issues. I'll go to Chestnut,
Yes.
McMillan,
Yes.
Prinzing,
No.
Smith,
Yes.
Thane,
No.
Top.
No.
All right, I am back to Don Briggs.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Don. Thank goodness. I've been muted all night. I couldn't control it. Nay.
No, okay. So that does give me 3 yeses, 4 noes. The motion does not pass.
Pass. So from here, we go to, we need to have another motion to approve, deny, or approve the conditions. I guess from here, does someone want to present a motion to deny? Does someone want to present a motion to add alternative conditions so that we can provide a path for the applicant? Maybe we have a conversation between the 4 no folks on, is that appropriate to why we voted no, so that we can have a conversation about maybe changing to get to a conclusion. So I can probably start with mine. I'm really concerned about this bisecting ditch and that 40-foot width, and particularly the triangle piece of property to the west of the irrigation ditch. I don't think that really classifies. I think there's a lot of waste space in that triangle configuration, and I do have a lot of safety concerns with this ditch. I think if the bridge was a different design, I think if there was another amenity, I think that would help the conversation. But I really think that I'm really getting hung up on that. So that's my reason. Brian?
Yes, I'd agree with your assessment. For the most part, I would go back to our review criteria. There's a couple of specifics there that for my reason for my nay vote, and that would be first review criteria under H1C, that building structures and uses are compatible with adjacent properties in terms of physical design elements such as volume and mass management. And that includes, to me, that includes the open space design portion of that. This goes back to some of the design intent of the landscaping requirements in Title 20 of mitigating possible adverse impacts of higher land uses located adjacent to lower intensity land uses. Although the property is under the maximum allowed density, I do believe that this part of the landscaping is meant to help mitigate those adverse impacts. And in the case of this design overall, with the landscaping that's shown and the activity area that's shown with the mass of the volume in that location specifically, I feel like it doesn't necessarily do that. It does not create a good or better job of meeting the overall intent, which is the review criteria under H2A, than if it was under strict compliance. In addition, there's another design intent there under landscaping that's criteria number 10, enhance the quality appearance of development projects. So I think that's another one there that I don't believe that this is good or better than that design intent if it was within strict compliance. And to me, that is related to scale in this specific area and scale in relation to adjacent properties.
Thank you, Brian. Levi?
I believe that as indicated in the staff report, it does not meet the criteria of Title 20. And as indicated in the in order to grant variation, it must meet the alternate compliance criteria, meaning is it as good or better than strict compliance, and it has not demonstrated that to me.
Thank you, Levi. And then Donald.
Yes, thank you. I feel there's too many exceptions. It's not contiguous. It's not central. It definitely doesn't meet the minimum width. So through all the evidence and arguments that's been brought forward, I fail to see how it's as good or better than what was intended by Title 20.
Thank you, Don. Does anyone feel like they want to bring a motion to the floor to deny, or should we have a discussion about another condition that might change one of the 4 nay votes? Does anyone have any creative solutions with particularly this activity area and what can be done differently than what the applicant has provided? I'm not seeing any hands. Ryan, I see his hand. Go ahead, Ryan.
I guess I'm just wondering if anybody has who voted to deny or voted not to approve, any ideas of other improvements that they believe would make it meet the standards of Title 20? Additional features or improvements?
Yeah, that's essentially what I'm asking as well. Brian, Levi, Don. Sorry.
Could we
Karen,
bring up the visual again?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in past meetings, we've offered design solutions and ideas to better make that good or better. And so I'm looking for board members for creative ideas here on how to do that. I'm just going to state the obvious here. There's a ditch. There's 2 pieces of land on either side of the ditch. There's a bridge and there's a picnic table, and there's some landscaping. And so, is there anything that we can think of that would change the 4 no votes' mind on this, whether it be bridge design, picnic table, other amenities, landscaping, reconfiguration, approach within that recreation area? It gets a little bit slippery where you're saying it not centered. I hear you, Don, but for it to be centered, it would have to, the project would have to be reconsidered, you know, from a site placement standpoint. And I don't know if we can necessarily require that.
Right. May I ask
wholesale
a question?
change. Madison, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't figure out how to raise my hand and screen share at the same time. Thank you. So I am just taking notes on the votes not to approve. Brandon, I feel like yours is very clear to me. Brian, most of yours have been. I understand the scale of the project. I would like more clarification on the landscaping not mitigating enough of an impact, kind of drilling down what type of landscaping would mitigate the impact, if that's what you're saying. Oh, just
would-
wait 1 second, if
Oh, yeah,
that's
sure.
okay, because I'll be done, and then I'll let you guys continue with discussing. Levi, you said it's not as good or better at meeting the intent of the landscaping chapter. It would help me if, again, just for my notes and for my report, if you could identify what specific intent is not being met. And then for Donald Briggs, you know, as I covered in the presentation, the point of specifically it being centrally located is for accessibility, and for, you know, it being contiguous is as that usable space. And so I would like some more specificity as to what about it is not usable, or what about it is not being accessible, and what about it, you know, what about the landscaping is not mitigating that impact. Thank you.
Yeah, I can start off. I think when I say landscaping, I mean the landscaping section of the Title 20. So it would be the section, the sections that they're requesting exceptions for. That the common area is common recreation area, specifically the Title 20 code that is requiring the activity area and the requirements for the activity area. So that would be the common recreation area not being contiguous. The common recreational being centrally located is not a concern to me. I do believe that it meets or is as good as it can be in that case. The common recreational area must have a length no more than 2 times its width, with a width no less than 40 feet. I don't believe that is good or better as well. So, and I think that those 2 requirements help to mitigate, are written to help mitigate the volume and mass management under review criteria C.
Thank you.
Looks like Mary's hand is up. Mary, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if I could toss out an idea. As I look at this
Please.
and listen to concerns, I'm thinking, well, what if the bridge was wider and it was actually like more of a platform and it could be a space for people to gather? Would that make it more usable rather than just something to cross to the other side? It was actually a wider linkage and space you could inhabit.
Yeah, so that was going to be my potential factor that could change my view on this as well. It is if I don't know if it's possible to do a longer culvert over that area, but if you could make it more contiguous, then that potentially would mitigate those concerns. Help mitigate those concerns.
So on that, we have our city engineer, Troy. Can you speak to Brian's idea about a culvert and or Mary's idea about a larger bridge? Do you have any knowledge on that, on whether that's acceptable?
Hi, yes, Troy Monroe, city engineer for development review. I think anything like that would be doable in this situation. It would have to be, you know, if Parks and Recs has taken out this space in their determination of what constitutes the recreational area, then it shouldn't matter what they do have in there for what it is to cross it. Enlarging it to, you know, a platform large enough that you could set out tables or something to sit on, I think would enhance it. But I can't be here to speak as to whether or not that it would increase the square footage allowed or anything like that.
Thank you.
May I make a comment on
Yeah.
that?
Cassie, go ahead.
Yeah, so if we were to condition to widen the bridge, that's something that could be done. We would need to state in that condition that it would need to be reviewed and approved by the irrigation ditch company, like they had done for this design. But that's possible, meaning if they're able to provide a wider bridge that is approved by the irrigation ditch, they could move forward. There's protections we could put in place there.
Thank you, Cassie. Yeah, so those are good ideas, Mary, Brian. Conversation between the 4 no votes on this, on having a culvert. Like, what if the culvert was the entire length, and the grass area was contiguous from left to right? Like, you basically buried the entire ditch underground, and there was a culvert the whole way, and or I should say, that bridge is 12 feet wide, where you can set, or 8 feet wide or something like that, where you can set tables out there.
Can I just offer up something here? I think that
Yeah, Levi.
this is getting into territory where, like, we don't have any. If you make that bridge wider, what's going to prevent a bunch of debris from accumulating under there and making the sides of it unreachable, where you can't access anything under there? Like, that's a condition that is entirely out of our control. Like, you can't tell them that we're going to have to cover this entire thing, because there's so much more design considerations that need to go into that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Levi. Brian, Mary, comments to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be any different than having something like a road going over it or something along those lines as far as those concerns go. However, I do see it potentially, coming. There are some other considerations within Title 20 and review criteria that it might change for people. So I could see that when it relates to water management and that sort of situation. I could see that there would be other concerns with it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, me personally, I struggle with widening the bridge and saying that would be good or better than a contiguous common recreation area. I personally don't think making the bridge larger would probably change my mind on that. But curious what Dawn has to say about that, Brian and Levi.
This is Dawn. I had thought about that also. Widening the bridge, for me, I think could create other issues that safety, or debris getting caught under there is one thing, but also just safety. People, kids or whatever, playing around down there getting lost or whatever. I can just kind of see it being maybe one of those gray issues, but yeah, I think the bridge is kind of a weak link. I think widening it could potentially solve that contiguous problem, but not really. I think it creates other problems, so I'm concerned about that.
Thanks, Don. We go from here. Someone can have a creative solution or put a motion on the floor to have one of these ideas about a larger bridge or a culvert.
I have an idea.
Karen.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, I will stop sharing. Also, board chair, it looks like the applicant currently has his hand raised.
Oh, thanks for the reminder. No, I see that. Yeah. Let's let Karen share the screen, and then we'll go to Adam. How about?
Okay. I was just playing with this, and you can see the original design on the right side and the left side. If you orient the building this other way, then you do get plenty of space. If you have the building basically go horizontal across the layout. So that's just a thought. I know that maybe it needs a little fine tuning, but just an idea to throw out there as a possible alternative solution that would also help mitigate the issue that the neighbors have, in the sense that there won't be a big block of apartments that are kind of looking down on to the neighbors to the right. So just playing around.
That's very interesting. Yeah, getting into details. Free design consultation. Here we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Appreciate that, Karen. I think that's interesting, and I don't know if staff has any. I don't know if we could condition that a total site redesign.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, and I think we can have a conversation about it just in general.
Yeah.
Adam, I see your hand up. Let's let Adam speak. Floor is yours, Adam.
Appreciate the creativity. We certainly, I mean, that was my ideal type of a layout. It's not possible to achieve a number of other regulatory issues, like having the ADA accessible parking close enough to the building. And there's just a host of issues that unfortunately, led us to what we believe is the greatest design that we could come up with in order to keep these units affordable and not maximize density, but make good use of land that is short in Missoula. Given my conversations with the irrigation ditch company, I'd find it very unlikely that they would have a willingness to allow the irrigation ditch to get put into a culvert. I think that also brings up other issues like permeable space and things of those nature. I'd be happy to make the bridge wider. It sounds like that's not really going to cut it for anyone. And if fences or some additional landscaping component or some active component, you would change it, certainly open to that. But in the absence of kind of clear direction, I would prefer that the application just be denied, and I have the ability to seek due process with my elected officials at the city council.
Thank you, Adam. Cassie, you had your hand up earlier. Do you still have?
I think Adam covered it. I was just going to mention, because of the dead end alleyway, there are some constraints with getting vehicles in and out of that sort of parking lot they were showing.
Thank you. Well, I think we've definitely talked about this. We should probably have a motion here, unless someone has a bad idea. We need a motion on the floor to deny or to approve with other conditions. And so if folks don't have other ideas than the bridge or the culvert, which doesn't sound like those are viable options, and the idea that Karen threw out there, although I think it's really interesting, and I do think that would really help a lot of things, it doesn't sound like that would work with ADA and other reasons stated by staff. So Brian, Levi, Don, other members, bring a motion to the floor, probably to.
I would make a motion to deny the request for exceptions Title 20. Should I read this all out, or is that okay?
I don't know that you have to. I was just,
Okay.
I made it in anticipation, so you'd have
Okay.
something to go off of. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So the motion on the floor, as Brian has brought motion to the floor to deny the recommended motion, or to deny the request. Can I get a second to that motion?
I second that motion.
I hear Donald seconding that motion. So we have two, and we'll have a roll call vote on the motion.
Briggs,
Nay.
This would, just to clarify, this is you approving the denial. So if you
Yes,
say
I
nay,
approve.
you're
I approve the
okay.
denial. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
And can I add a clarification? The motion said, based on the findings of fact in the staff report, it's mostly based on the findings of that, the folks voting affirmative in the no for the, affirmative for denial. There you go.
Thank you.
I'm a little confused on that, Mary. Say that again. Sorry.
So if you vote for denial, it is the findings of fact in the staff report generally support approval of the request. So it's there'll be some general findings that will carry over, but the reasons or the findings for denial are what you stated on the record this evening, those voting in denial. Okay.
Which we've already, the four of us have already stated.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Please continue.
Sure. So Briggs, I have yes for the denial. Chestnut.
Yes.
McMillan.
No.
Prinzing.
Yes.
Smith.
No.
Could you repeat that?
No.
No. Thank you. Thane.
Yes.
Top.
Yes.
That would be 5 yeses, 2 nos. The motion to deny passes.
Thank you. That was a tough one. Appreciate the applicants and all the public comments. And sorry I didn't have a better outcome for you, Adam. But I appreciate your time and your thought on this. And I wish you the best with your project. All right. Let's see. The next agenda item is old business. Agenda item number 7. I don't see anything from staff as attached in the agenda. So seeing none, we'll move to agenda item number 8, new business. Is there any new business the staff wants to talk about? Seeing none, we'll move to agenda item number 9, comments from board members about tonight and how this all went. Do we have any comments from board members?
Yeah, I guess I do want
Yeah.
to discuss somewhat because I struggle because while I agree and we don't have to all agree on things, I think we're all trying to do our best here and create a process that's approachable and usable from design review board standpoint. So for me, I struggle with the fact that, and Brian, rightfully so, you have an issue with the massing. We're talking about something that wasn't presented or shown, and it wasn't part of the 3 distinct differences or the variance from, it was just about the open space, right? So when the applicant put everything forward, it was about those 3 variances, and we didn't even have the building massing. We can all assume what it looked like, but that I just struggle where our boundaries are. What can we talk about? What can't we? What's opened when somebody asks for a variance? Does that open everything for comments or just those focal areas?
I would say I was looking specifically at the review criteria and what their intent is and the intent of the landscaping. And so to me, that's related to that. And the review criteria specifically talks about the massing. So a volume control is what it says. So that's where I was getting into.
And that was in regard to the buildings then too, right?
It's in regards to what the intent of the activity area would be in relation to that.
Right. And so I just think that the application should have included more detail on that so that it could be fairly assessed. I mean, most of us are architects or engineers and could guess what it would feel like there, but that's the part that I struggle with is like, where is it opened up? And I guess I know that's why we're working on training and everything, but I just want to have clear boundaries of, what's fair game and what's not, because the last thing I want is people to just avoid coming to design review board. I don't think anybody wants that. And to be clear, 15 units at 4 stories in the middle of that site would have worked. So, and maybe could have met all the criteria. And there's just a lot of things that get built that a more creative solution gives a better outcome, I guess. So I guess I'm just saying that as a cautionary. I want to make sure we're really clear and have good discussions and we're really educated about all these pieces.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Heather. I think that, we have, 8 board members. I forget the number, 7, I guess, that are, 8, whatever, that are professionals, architects, engineers, landscape architects, developers. We have a good mix of different opinions and folks. And so, I welcome the discussion, and, this was a really tough one tonight. And, just for the record, I am 100% behind, densifying Missoula and infill projects. I think I'll probably, if Brian and Levi and Don were to speak, they would probably say the same thing. We have a housing crisis. And so Adam's comments about that are right on. I'm just going straight from, I didn't believe that 40-foot width was met, or clearly wasn't met, and the shape of those recreation areas were troubling to me. And it's an unfortunate circumstance with a site condition like that. But as architects and designers and engineers and builders and owners, we're asked to, look at the site constraints, and they just weren't met by the letter of the law, the Title 20. And I didn't feel like this one would have been good or better. I felt like it was worse with the ditch going through.
The ditch is a site constraint. I agree. I kept it out of my testimony while we were voting and talking, but if Adam can hit 70% area median income, it's something we can't do. Having produced 2,000 units across Montana, it's all lower than that. We have this huge workforce housing issue, and the middle income, and most market rate developers don't care. They're going to get market. So that shouldn't factor into my decision, and I didn't. But it's really important. And I think if we don't build densely, then we lose all our open space and our farmland and our rivers, and the reason we all live and thrive here. So density has to be dealt with, and we need to be denser and go close to infrastructure. And how we do that is really important. So I don't want this to be a reflection of just no density, right? That would really bother me.
Absolutely. It also it came down to, number of units too. That wasn't tied to my decision, but if it was slightly less dense, it wouldn't have needed to come in front of the board to begin with. And so there's that fact out there. Did not tie to my decision tonight, but it is a fact. And so, it's a matter of, and this is just general conversation. We're having a conversation as a board in the public forum right now, but it's not, you can't build your way out of affordable housing. It's a multifaceted approach, and how you build is as important as what you build. These projects have to be sensitive to their neighbors, and they have to be well designed, and all of those things. We have to, balance that in the community, maybe not in this forum, but in the community, how we build this city out. It cannot be just about numbers. And I think that's an important point to make, at least in my opinion, is that it needs to be sensitive. And so
I 100% agree. Once it's built, it doesn't go away. So that's why I think a lot of us serve on this board, is that design standards, whether you want to call it design excellence or not, matter. So it's all fair game. So I agree, how we build matters. And it's just, this is a really hard one to navigate, and why we will continue to strive to do better. So in our conversations and our working knowledge.
Absolutely. All right, it's 8:20. Does anyone else have any other comments for tonight? All right, hearing none, I'll adjourn this meeting, the Design Review Board meeting from Wednesday, February 9th, 2022. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone. appreciate everyone's time. Thank you, staff. Mary,
Yeah, thanks,
Kathy,
staff.
Madsen, does a lot of work here, and it was a tough one, and I really appreciate all the thought for sure.
Yeah, thanks for running it, Brandon.
Yeah,
I'm trying
thanks,
my
you
best, guys.
You're doing
Trying
great.